Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today, I want to talk about something that recently has come up quite a bit in the comment section, and that is watch winders. What do I think? Do you need them? Are they a waste of money? Well, let's talk about it. Now, before we get started, the customary wristwatch check. Today, I'm wearing the PAM 111 Luminor Marina manual wind on the black Panerai rubber strap. Perfect for summer weather, especially since we're probably about 85 degrees Fahrenheit in New York, so it's pretty sticky. And actually, ironically enough, a watch which does not need a winder at all because it's manual wind. So, watch winders, what do I think? It's a little bit of a mixed bag, to be honest with you. So, watch winders, what are they? They're a little box. They could be made out of plastic or exotic materials where you put your automatic, not mechanical, but your automatic watch onto it, and it rotates and it keeps the watch wound. Now, these can range anywhere from about $50 for a Chinese made one up to tens of thousands of dollars for one made out of luxury materials. However, they tend to be rather expensive. And there's really not that many options in the lower $60 price range. What do I think? Well, let me start off by saying I don't own any watch winders, and I have a pretty large collection of about 14 or 13 watches. I did a state of the collection video yesterday, so take a look. I'll leave a link above. And I don't know any winders. And a lot of people have been saying, Federico, are they worth it? Do you need one? You know what? I'm going to say you don't need watch winders. I think they're cool. I would definitely use one if someone gave it to me, but I'm not going to spend my own money on them. So, there's a few things to consider when buying a watch winder. And that, the first one being to make sure that it winds in both directions because some movements are not bidirectionally wound. So, for example, a Netta 2892 is bidirectionally wound. So, if you put it on a winder that only rotates one way, it's fine. However, other movements, like anything in the Valjoux 7750 series, only winds in one direction. So, you have to make sure that the winder you're buying will wind in the correct direction. Now, the more expensive winders not only wind in both directions, but they have intermittent programs where they'll wind, 2 minutes in this direction and then switch it up. And you also can set the winding speed. Now, that is another thing to consider. Not all movements wind at the same rate. So you have to check the winding speed necessary to wind your movement. And you can quickly do that in a Google search. Just type in Rolex watch winder speed and it'll tell you. So it's also important to pick a watch winder with variable speed. Now, the more features you have, obviously the price goes up and up. So the $60 winder might not offer all these features. Then another thing to consider is to make sure that your winder is powered by AC or you can plug it into the wall. Because winders eat up battery like nobody's business. I mean, it is a mechanical motor. So I've seen some pretty cool ones. Actually, my good friend TGV over at the Urban Gentry has one where it plugs into USB, and that's pretty awesome. However, you do not want a winder that runs solely on battery power. Then we have to consider, what are the differences between the expensive winders and the less expensive $60 Amazon winders? This can really, really vary. The cheaper winders tend to be made in China and have very rudimentary kind of motors in them. And these tend to make a lot of noise. And I know I can't sleep in the same room as a cheap watch winder because it sounds like a washing machine. You can always hear the humming of the motor. And that to me, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean? The more expensive ones are a little bit more quiet and they can even be silent for the really high-end models. But this is not true for all the models, it does vary. Once again, my good friend TGV has a less expensive model and it's pretty silent, but it's been running for about a year and a half and he mentioned it started to make noise. So, he's going to have to replace it. So the rule of thumb here is usually you get what you pay for. But that's not always the case because I have seen some higher end winders which are 10 times the price of a cheaper winder, but have the exact same components. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is make sure you do your research before you buy them. I don't really have any experience with lower end winders. The ones I know are kind of $500 and above. They're made by companies like Wolf Winders or Swiss Cubic. They're really, really well made. However, I'd rather spend $500 on my next watch purchase than a winder. Now, there are other pieces which, if I had in my collection, I would definitely own a winder because it makes a lot of sense. Something like an annual calendar or a perpetual calendar. Watches which are a little bit of a pain to set because it's complicated to change the date, and that is really when a winder comes into play. If I had a watch like that, I would definitely keep it on a winder just because I don't want to set it every time. People also say that keeping it on a winder is good for the life of the watch. I'm not going to say that's a lie, but once again, as long as you keep the watch wound, you wind it maybe once a month, like I spoke about in my service video, I'll also leave a link up top, then it shouldn't really be a problem. I think winders are cool little gadgets, but ultimately are a waste of money unless you have certain pieces that really need them. Anyway, guys, what do you think? Leave me a comment in the comment section below. And please give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful. I know it was a shorter one. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on watch winders. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really does help, and you don't want to miss any content. And once again, thank you for sticking around for Federico Talks Watches. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.